District Council election underway. And the Israeli leader says the offensive against Hamas will continue for at least another month. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Today is District Council Ordinary Election Day. The city's 4.3 million registered voters can vote at more than 600 polling stations to decide 88 of the 470 directly elected seats across 118 councils. As of 6:30 p.m., with 3 hours left before the polling stations close at 10:30 p.m., the turnout rate stands at 22.85%. More than 990,000 people have cast their ballots. 171 candidates are contesting for the 88 directly elected geographical constituency seats. So far, Kwun Tong North saw the highest turnout rate at 27.94%. Sha Tin West, meanwhile, with the lowest rate at 19.98%. Chief Executive John Lee and other senior officials voted earlier today and called upon registered voters to take part in the election. They stressed voters' choices can bring about change for good in the community. Timothy Lee tells us more.
At around 9 this morning, Chief Executive John Lee and his wife went to the polling station at Raimani College in the Central and Western Geographical Constituency. Lee said he had carefully read the backgrounds of the 5 candidates in the constituency and their campaign pledges before making his choice. The CE once again urged Hong Kongers to come out and vote. Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan also voted in the morning. He said he hopes the activities organized by the government before the election brought some joy to the city. He reiterated there are no strict targets for the voter turnout rate. This as Financial Secretary Paul Chan, Secretary for Justice Paul Lam, and Electoral Affairs Commission Chairman David Locke all urged residents to vote in the election. Some well-known figures in the community voted at a polling station at Hong Kong Park. They included Henderson Land Development Chairman and brothers Peter and Martin Lee, who emphasized candidates must be patriots and reminded residents to cast their ballots to help build a better community. Television Broadcast Limited Executive Chairman Hui To also voted, as did lawmaker Martin Liao and former Chief Justice of the Court of Final Appeal Jeffrey Ma. Some voters shared their thoughts on Election Day.
First of all, I think Hong Kong, we are in a different stage. You know, everything is very harmonized. Everybody is happier. Of course, we worry about the economy, but at the same time, we have no social unrest. So it's, I am looking forward to seeing a very high voting rate.
I think it's important for, each of us in the community to express our preferences. And, this is what is left. So I think we have to do good use of it. I think in the district council election, it's a very focus on the management, let's say, of each district. So it's important for us to have our voice heard.
I just want to make sure that we have the good future in Hong Kong. Expect new people will have a new picture for the Hong Kong people.
There is no shortage of people coming to this area just a few minutes away from the polling station. As you can see behind me, there are large crowds of residents and tourists queuing for a ride on the Peak Tram. But things look a little different nearby. At around noon today, relatively few residents came to vote at one of the polling stations at the Hong Kong Park Sports Center. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Meanwhile, voting is still ongoing across the city. We now go live to our reporter Mimosa Ngai, who is at the polling station in Wong Tai Sin. Hi, Mimosa. How's the situation like at the polling station right now?
Hi, Jackie. Yes, currently I'm outside the Wong Tai Sin Community Center, one of the polling stations in the Wong Tai Sin district. We have passed 7:30, which means the district council elections will be over in less than 3 hours. While it's dinner time now, some people are still heading to the polling station. Some people came alone by themselves, and some brought their families with them. And this year, this is the first district council election under the reform district council ordinance. And 171 candidates are competing for the 88 directly elected seats. The new system allows around 4.3 million registered voters to cast ballots for 88 directly elected seats among the 470 in the 18 districts. The 7-term office of the district councils will serve for 4 years, starting on January 1st, 2024. Polling stations across the city opened at 8:30 a.m. on Sunday, an hour later than the previous district council elections. Some voters decided to cast their ballots early in the morning. This man said he voted early because they had to work. Police can be seen outside polling stations. Over 10,000 police officers are deployed today to maintain order. At Queen's College polling station in Wan Chai district, some voters brought their children.
To vote for the future of Hong Kong. So that's why we are here. And I especially bring my son here so that he knows what I'm doing. I hope they can do more facilities, build up more facilities for Hong Kong, and then hope like Hong Kong people, they'll be happier than before, and they will really feel the help from the government.
Some voters believe the government has worked hard to motivate people to vote by boosting the election sentiment and atmosphere. This voter hoped future district councillors can build a better community.
Better than before.
After casting their ballots, voters will receive a thank you card from the government, designed by civil servants. Many showed off their cards as they posed for pictures outside the polling station here. The polling stations for geographical constituency will close at 10:30 p.m., while polling for the district committee constituency ended at 2:30 p.m. The cumulative turnout rate was 96.92% for the district committee's constituency. Musin 9, TVB News.
All seats in today's election are contested with no automatic winners. Wan Chai sees one of the most hotly contested battles for the directly elected seats. Let's take a look at the campaign efforts by this geographical constituency's 5 contenders. A comeback from Jeff Wang Xiaotong, who failed in his 2019 district council bid as an independent. This time he joined the New People's Party. Wang said the party support has helped him reach out to more voters. Also staging a comeback in Wan Chai is Nicholas Mokachun from the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong. Endorsed by former Legislative Council President Jasper Tsang, Mok said the DAB has been serving the Wan Chai district for more than 30 years. Also vying for a district council seat is TVB host turned politician Song Qiling from the Liberal Party. Song brought along her pet dog to campaign for votes. She hopes the public will know that she's more than just a TV actress, and she also does solid work for the community. These contenders are jostling against Wan Chai's incumbent district councillor Peggy Lee. Not affiliated to any political party, Lee said she had handled many issues in the Wan Chai area. She said she hopes to let residents in the Wan Chai district understand her commitment and track record in serving her community. Independent candidate Raymond Lee here is running in the district council election for the first time. He said he's not worried about being less well known because he had organized a slew of youth events and sports activities in the district. Having grown up in the district, he said he understands local needs as his grandfather was one of the founders of the Kaifeng Welfare Association. The 5 candidates will compete for the 2 directly elected seats in the Wan Chai district. For the first time, the government has set up polling stations that cater especially to Hong Kong voters living across the border at 2 schools in Shengshui. Most voters found the arrangement convenient. Some arriving from faraway places suggested that the government set up polling stations at the airport in future. Sakura Ip was in Shengshui this morning.
People lined up outside the 2 Shengshui schools at 7 a.m., 1.5 hours before they opened. Mr. Ip, who was in the line, said it's convenient because the polling stations were close to the MTR station. Shuttle buses were ready to take voters from the train station to the polling stations. Voters with registered addresses in Kowloon and on Hong Kong Island were told to disembark at the first stop, while those with the New Territories addresses would cast their ballot at the second stop. The peak voting period started at 10 a.m. Quite a number of Hong Kong citizens who are based in Guangdong province returned to vote, saying they found arrangements convenient. Travel agencies also stepped in to bring voters from Shenzhen to Hong Kong on one-day return trips. Ms. Chan, a Hong Kong citizen based at Beijing, flew back yesterday for the vote. She suggested that the government set up polling stations at the airport to serve voters arriving from various places. Those who choose to cast their vote at the special polling stations had to register online with the Registration and Electoral Office.
Electors from different districts are assigned to vote at respective near-boundary polling stations in Shanghai. The office received around 13,000 online registrations.
After entering the schools, voters are guided to vote at the hall or the playground, according to the districts of their registered Hong Kong addresses. This voter found the instructions straightforward and clear. Secretary of Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Eric Tang visited the polling station. He said the waiting time was not long, with the system running smoothly. Secretary Ip, TVB News.
To make it easier for senior citizens to vote, the government has for the first time subsidized care homes for the elderly to arrange transportation for their residents to go to polling stations. At this home for the elderly in Shun Wan, senior citizens used the transportation provided to go to vote this morning. Joining them on the bus was Secretary for Labour and Welfare Chris Sun. Over 90% of the city's care homes for the elderly took part in the scheme, with each receiving $20,000 in subsidy. Israel's military pushed ahead with its punishing air and ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. Their efforts were bolstered by a U.S. veto derailing a UN Security Council resolution that would have called for a humanitarian ceasefire. The Biden administration also bypassed Congress to enable the sale of nearly 14,000 rounds of tank ammunition to Israel. Palestinian authorities say almost 18,000 people have been killed since October 7th, when Gaza group Hamas stormed Israel in an attack that resulted in 1,200 deaths. Nasvi Karim has more.
The Israeli military, meanwhile, showed footage of its soldiers taking on Hamas in Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. Both sides claiming to have the upper hand in the ground war, neither of which can be independently verified. US President Joe Biden has just bypassed Congress to approve $106 million worth of extra tank ammunition for Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in an address, thanked the US for its support after Washington on Friday vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution that would have called for a humanitarian ceasefire. Netanyahu added that the ongoing offensive would continue for at least another month. Airstrikes, meanwhile, continued across the length of the Gaza Strip as the humanitarian crisis worsens. Israel, in its efforts to limit civilian casualties, has ordered residents in 6 blocks of southern Khan Yunis to evacuate urgently. Still, Gaza authorities say 133 people were killed in the previous 24 hours. As Gaza residents are corralled into ever smaller safety zones, a UNICEF spokesman blamed the world for not opening borders for those desperate for refuge.
I was in Ukraine when families just like these were forced to flee and the world opened its heart to them. I do not understand now why the world has closed its eyes.
Hospitals are also oversaturated, with the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis and those in the north struggling to deal with the number of casualties. Meanwhile, several Palestinian men and teenage boys have been released by the Israel military, having been among those who were stripped to their underwear in footage that triggered global outrage. At a hospital in the town of Dar al-Bala in central Gaza, Ahmed Abu Ras said they had half a glass of water during the 5 days of detention. Several had bruises on their bodies or deep cuts from zip ties. Usama Ula said 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4 and 5 days. Every morning they beat everyone in the stomach, everywhere, beating, hitting and screaming their interrogation. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
And still ahead, the phasing out of fossil fuels still a contentious issue at a UN climate summit. A hospital fire in Italy leaves at least 3 dead. And locally, police arrested a 52-year-old woman in Taipo on suspicion of murdering her husband. Welcome back. Nations clashed at the UN Climate Summit in Dubai, jeopardizing attempts to deliver a first-ever commitment to end the use of fossil fuels. COP28 presidents said they were far from an agreement. China's climate envoy admitted the talks have been difficult. David Garrett reports.
A climate protester turning the canals of Venice green. The demonstration by Extinction Rebellion using a non-pollutant substance was designed to get global attention. Other activists hang from a bridge with a banner which says, while governments talk, we hang by a thread. They are referring to the UN climate conference COP28 in Dubai. These environmentalists want to see an end to fossil fuels for good. In Dubai, there is no consensus yet on whether countries will agree to eliminate fossil fuels.
There is some positive movement at the political level, and we need to channel that energy into speeding up the technical work. That said, there are still more areas of divergence than agreement. The window is closing to close the gaps. We are making progress, but not fast enough.
Saudi Arabia and Russia are the leaders of a group of oil producers that want to focus on reducing carbon emissions and not a direct targeting of fossil fuels. OPEC has urged its members to block any deal to phase out oil.
Some of the OPEC countries that say they are not willing to accept any limitation on fossil fuels. And of course that includes other countries such as Russia, which is a member of OPEC Plus but not OPEC, and China, which is not a member of OPEC at all. So there is a block of countries whose opposition will have to be overcome.
China's climate envoy says talks were his most difficult in a long career. He has confidence the contentious fossil fuel question can be resolved. Xi Jinping said an agreement was crucial to the success of COP28. The envoy declined to say if China, the biggest emitter of CO2s in the world, would agree to eliminating coal, oil and gas. China is the world's biggest consumer of coal. India is another country that appears to be holding back on a deal, while nations on the front line of climate change say they need agreement.
For COP28 to be a success, I repeat, it needs to deliver both on fossil fuel phase-out, renewables and an end to fossil fuel subsidies. The science tells us that these commitments are crucial to meeting a 1.5-degree aligned pathway.
Countries here are fighting for their lives, the small islands, and most countries here are engaging very actively on this discussion in a real way. And I think it is obviously not responsible to have a position that would mean the life and death of many million people.
The clock is ticking with only 3 days left at COP28 for countries to deliver.
To double your efforts and to work towards consensus, towards all pressing issues. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I wish you all a good evening, and this meeting is now adjourned.
David Garrett, TVB News.
Fire engulfed a hospital on the outskirts of Rome, killing 3 and forcing hundreds to be evacuated. All 3 that died were said to be elderly people. The blaze began in an emergency room on the ground floor. The hospital is about 35 kilometers north of the center of the Italian capital. Using ladders to reach patients on high floors, fire and police rescue crews worked through the night to save lives. Locally, a 52-year-old woman has been arrested in Tai Po on suspicion of murdering her 62-year-old husband. Police received a call last night from a man who said he had lost contact with his uncle, who lived in a village in Tai Po. When he arrived at the uncle's home, his aunt refused to open the door, so he sought police assistance. After police arrived at the scene, officers found a 62-year-old man on the floor. He was later confirmed dead. Police arrested his 52-year-old wife on suspicion of murder. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.